Ready?
I'm ready.
We're ready. Hi, it's me, Mel B, with surprise special guest today, Father Mel B.
I'm the Melby.
I'm the Mel B as well.
No, I was the first Melby.
Which makes him Father Mel B, father of Mel B. Because this is Mel B ASMR. Welcome. Please bear with us. This is our first foray into partner ASMR. So we thought we'd give it a try here. But basically, I wanted to introduce you to Master Storyteller here. And I say that I have my little notes here to do a little interview here with this Master Storyteller. So hopefully we will be able to lull you into a nice state of relaxation or even off to slumber. So basically I'd like to start with Father Melby. When I talk about storytelling, of course, I conjure bedtime stories. And we were just talking last night about these this classic episodic story line that you would tell my brother and I, and it was entitled Steve and Nipper. Maybe you could give us a little perhaps the start of an episode or what do you how you came about Steve and Nipper.
Well, with our two children, we wanted some way to slow them down at night, to be able to relax and use their imaginations without using television or anything electronic, not even books. We wanted the joy of and the excitement of radio or something like that. So I came up with the concept of just telling stories and using a continued storyline of Steve, the little 7-year-old boy, and his...
It sort of reminded me of Lassie because that was the generation you grew up on, no?
Well, I may have used an idea of Lassie and a little boy, but I think most all the ideas of stories came right off the top of our heads in the experiences we had every day.
I remember lying on the floor of the closet in the big old white house on 3rd Street. And it had old stained glass that would come in, sometimes a little spooky. But
it was a 100-year-old house, and there were spirits that bounced around that added to the magic of the old house.
Do you really feel that it was haunted?
I'm not saying haunted. Haunted conjures up a feeling of fear and mayhem. It was blessed with spirits that I think gave our children imaginations that were turned into careers.
So that's how it all began, folks, with Stephen Nipper. Maybe at the end he could regale us with a tale. So, basically you've had a life yourself full of creativity that you have passed down to your generation, your next generation. So what was your life beginning like as a creative? I remember you had said you had written a play in high school instead of writing a term paper.
Our assignment, yes, was Shakespeare, and at the time I was not into Shakespeare. I felt it was not my wheelhouse, and I talked to our English instructor, and he said, I think you need a special project. So he said, why don't you write a play, because you're always coming up with these strange comments, ideas, and talking during class. And so I wrote a play instead of a term paper in Shakespeare.
Very creative. And then it seemed that your career just went into the line of creativity. You don't have to share too much. You can keep it a mystery if you like. And
what part of my history can't I share?
it's true. We're open books here, folks. Somewhat. Anywho.
But my book has fewer pages probably than yours.
That you're willing to share. Moving right along. So basically, we came back together. Well, no, when I was still young, we decided. Well, I've always been a theater geek, as you probably know, and I thought I put the old guilt trip on the old man and said, "Dad, we gotta do a play together before I fly out of the nest." And so I remember I convinced you to go to the audition from the town over, the community theater, and it was for State Fair.
And I agreed because my daughter would be leaving the next year for New York, so I wanted to have a little more time with her. So, not doing theater other than a little bit in high school, I agreed, thinking I would be a background chorus player. But probably because there weren't enough people turning out for the audition, I got a lead in the play. And as the curtain opened, there was the big chubby dad singing State Fair.
And of course, it was typecasting because, well, he grew up on a farm.
But I didn't wear overalls.
No. In fact, didn't you reject farm life for the life of a creative?
I used farm life basically to do my work so I could get into town, into more civilization. And now I look back at it and all I want to do is now be outside and mow the grass and mow the weeds.
Be one with nature. Isn't that interesting? The stories we find we make up about our ancestors. But now, when you dive into a video, is the best time to find out the real truths. So, moving right along, we've done some other plays together. Let's see, there was Huck Finn, who you played, the evil guy?
I played Injun Joe, which now we don't know if we can use the term Injun Joe, but it was a very enjoyable part because normally I'm a jovial, joking guy who likes everybody, but this was not that type of character.
But it's definitely in your wheelhouse, something you are, well, because you're quite large and intimidating in stature. So to play the evil guy makes sense. Although you can turn it on and be the clown.
Yes, I've had many roles where I'm the clueless, loudmouth jokester that hopefully, as a character, people like because he makes a few mistakes, but he means well.
So,
probably like my real life.
Can you think of other roles that you have played, like favorite roles?
Well, Odd Couple, being the Oscar character. I've done that 3 times, and that fits perfectly. Probably my most rewarding play that I did not do with you was of Mice and Men, where I got to play Lenny, a mentally challenged big farmhand who it was so enjoyable because I had to play down and had to be quiet, and I was a child, big man's body.
Well, you can really just do it all, from comedy to musicals to dramas. That's an amazing play. I don't think I've ever seen it. I know I've read it, but I would love to see that one. So, we actually just saw a musical last night. My first time ever seeing, please, my
Little
Shop of Horrors. And that makes me think of a role you'd be great at, which is the voice of Audrey.
it's something that, yes, I've been probably gifted with a resonant, deep voice and stuff, but yes, that would be fun to do the vocal and the highs and the lows and the evil growth.
We would make a good team because, of course, as you know, I love puppetry, and I would get into that plant. I could be doing the mouthing your words, because I mean it's like a dance. That's a collaboration between voice acting and puppetry. Pretty interesting. So speaking of musicals, and musicals being my absolute favorite, I know that's something we share a love for. We'll oftentimes play. I remember growing up playing Name That Tune, where you would just whistle a couple notes and have to name that tune. But we do it with Broadway musicals. What are some of your favorite Broadway musicals?
Of course, Les Mis, Hades Town. Oh, there's so many. Of course, some of the old classics and stuff too. Whether it be Music Man, Oklahoma, which are 100 years old, but and some of my non-favorite musicals are like Cats.
What?
I'm sorry.
You gotta be joking me.
Well, it's probably because I don't like cats.
Oh, but not even for the irony of it. Cats is ridiculous. That's why you gotta love it. Anywho, we can agree to disagree. I agree. I love pretty much all musicals, except I'm not so much a fan of the genre of musical. The musical. I don't even know if that's a real musical, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like spoofical, the spoofical. But although I do like Spamalot, but I wouldn't say it's in that category. Anywho, but I have to admit, big nerd fan for Andrew Lloyd Webber. I know a lot of people give him a bad rap, but I love every single one of his pieces. And of course, Stephen Sondheim. He's a total nerd in another way, right? But that's a whole other hour-long.
Well, Sondheim is something that I admire as musicals, but I don't think I could keep up with his pace or his note challenging to the singers.
And even just all the words. I'm like,
yes.
Okay, well, I would love to see you. I'm like, what is a Sondheim role for you? Do you... well, if you happen to have any ideas, please let us know. But basically, I mean, there is, of course, the story of the one play we did. I ought to be in pictures. Was I from New York? Did I have a sort of New York accent? I probably tried, but I don't really, do it that well because, of course, I'm from the middle of America. I'm not from the East Coast. But in that show, I came out to see my dad. We played real life father-daughter. Well, in the play, we were father-daughter. So, typecast. And how that one, I was going... Well, maybe you want to take this story.
Well, this was one of those moments when you get to do a stage play with a daughter who's leaving the next day for London, which we wouldn't be seeing her again for a while. But it was a play, yes, of a father who had left his family and the girl who wanted to be an actress, the daughter who wanted to be an actress.
Can you imagine?
And she came out to see her father, whose life was kind of screwed up. And he didn't trust her judgment. And he loved her but had a problem showing it. And it was moments on stage that made you laugh. And finally, the final scene where I trusted my daughter and I knew she was going to be successful. And we were standing on the stage in this little theater, and it's very quiet, and she comes up to me, and the line was, goodbye, and she gets to the doorway, and she looks back, and she says, "Daddy, I love you." And the whole audience started tearing up, and I think we teared up, and it was the best moment I've ever had on stage.
Pardon me, but he doesn't mention that when we go to hug goodbye on stage, he slips me $100 bill.
Well, the actual script called for me to offer her money, and she's supposed to refuse it.
That's how it goes.
But I gave her $100 bill, and she refused it, and I forced her to take it. And now I regret it, because she still owes me that $100.
I mean, starving artists, what are you going to do? You're going to take the bill, right?
Yeah, you're not a dumb starving artist. Exactly.
True, thank you. And so then, basically, I just wanted to end our evening here with maybe a little taste of what a Stephen Nipper episode might sound like for viewers. Might help them drift off into a nice slumber or relaxation. So picture yourselves lying in your closet floor or wherever's comfy and cozy, and maybe have a stained glass window shining in, and maybe your house is haunted or not, or just in happy spirits. But either way, let yourself just drift back into childhood and enjoy a little scene of Stephen Nipper.
And it needs to be dark. And it needs to be quiet. But Steve was a little boy and had his dog Nipper. Nipper was a white little fuzzy dog, medium size. And this episode was Steve and Nipper were going for a short walk. And they walk out the door of their house, and they walk down the street, and they go by the bakery. Then they go by the gas station, and down around the corner they go by the clothing store, and then just at the end of that block they go by the little restaurant where sometimes they would stop in and get French fries. But that day they didn't stop. They went all the way down to the river, and they weren't supposed to be at the river. Mom and Dad said, "Don't go to the river, it's dangerous." Well, Steve and Nipper went down to the shore, and Steve started throwing rocks in the water, trying to skip. And Steve stepped on a slippery rock and fell in. And all of a sudden he realized that the current was starting to push him down along the shore. And he tried to stay calm, but he couldn't. And Nipper ran along the shore barking, and no one was around. And Steve started flailing his arms, saying, "Nipper, help me." And Nipper ran over to the shore and picked up a little branch, just about the size of Nipper's length himself, but he leaned way out over the water. And Steve grabbed this branch, and Nipper kind of dug his feet in, and Steve was able to pull himself back up out of the water. He gave Nipper a big hug. They thought they better get back home again because Steve was full of mud and little seeds from the water. But they came back, and they got to town. They walked by the restaurant where they had the good French fries, and the clothing store, and the gas station, and
The bakery.
And the bakery. I know that you'd like to have something from the bakery. He came in the house and was able to sneak in and put his clothes in the dirty clothes hamper and put his pajamas on and crawl into bed. And he had Nipper jump up with him into bed. And the only problem was Nipper was still wet and muddy. But Steve didn't care if Mom got mad because he has an adventure for the rest of his life. The end.
I hope you all are feeling nice and cozy and know that Nipper will always save the day. Well, thank you for joining us here with Melby and Master Storyteller Father Melby on another evening of ASMR. Good night.
Good night.